You're dialed into the show that informs, entertains, inspires, and promotes all things that go left. Welcome to Late Model Monday, the weekly show to stay in the know about asphalt late models here in the Pacific Northwest. Tonight's show is brought to you by Miller Kitchen and Bath, Bailey General Contractors, and by Myers Floor Covering, Welcher's Gun Shop, Flaming Pig Barbecue, and by the Wenatchee Valley Super Oval and the Leonard Evans Used Car Superstore, and by the great folks at Product41.com, McKinney Glass of Yakima, Atomic Screen Printing, and BLG, Blue Line Graphics. Be unique, stand out, and get noticed. www.blg.blue. And now, back to your horsepower and performance hosts, Terry Bridges and the load, Jeff Eden. on my podcast, but let's see. Here we go. There we go. We'll go here. God darn it. Ugh. There we go. I'm back. Hopefully everybody comes back. But anyway, so I guess what I'm saying is, since none of that matters, then how do you know what to worry about?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is you got to be able to get it down to the right heights you need and be able to keep it there. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff that people think that thinking is so far behind because they hear everybody else's opinions, and they're just way behind for where it's at. I mean, it don't matter what bump stops you have in it hardly at all. It doesn't matter how much you clamshell things. It don't matter how much, how many bump stops you have on there. When it gets right down to it, if you do it right, there's very few things that you'll find that make a big difference. There's a lot of things that people work on with the bump stops and, like I say, all the different barometers and all that stuff. And they pretty much get a little crazy on that. So then if you had a late model in this, or a pro late in this day and age, I mean, what is it then that you have to worry about? Well, the biggest thing is worrying about is just keeping your car down and making it stay on there. And you worry about the caster and the camber. I mean, that's very critical. And, air pressures, you obviously have to worry about your wedge. It's just, you just never believe that you could drive around a racetrack like at Martinsville Speedway in my truck with a 1,200-pound right rear spring in the car, and the thing was tight. And that's the kind of things that people just don't realize. There was a time when we first started doing the stiff right rear thing that we actually built a lock-up shock for the right rear that traveled a half inch. And it was solid at that point. It was hydraulically locked. And we kicked everybody's butt. I mean, you can't believe the stuff you can do and all the goofy things that people think that are so far out in left field.
Man. Because, I mean, that makes me say, okay, so basically everything that I learned in the, 10 or 15 years that I studied with JJ and all the things, all that stuff means nothing, correct?
No, it means a lot. It means it's confusing your thought. You'd be better off if you were younger and you didn't have any of that stuff to think of. I'm serious. That stuff messes with my head a lot, because you keep thinking about all that stuff and you keep worrying about, roll centers and things like that. I mean, the first car that I was working on that was an Xfinity that was kind of a high travel a coil bound type car was a Xfinity car. And it was kind of through Penske. And I looked at the geometry on that car and I was like amazed that this thing could even go around a circle, and they were kicking everybody's ass at the time. And it was at Michigan. And it was just amazing. I looked at instant centers and roll centers and stuff like that, jacking force. And it's like, there's no way a car could go around a corner. And you talk to the engineers up there and they're saying, none of that shit matters. It just don't matter. Car don't move. It don't matter.
God, that's crazy. Well, I call, everybody was talking about, okay, so Chuck Crothers has a pull down machine, and everybody's, you got it. I mean, to me, that's almost like the tire prep and go-karts, right? I mean,
oh yeah.
Now you got to have a pull down machine with, that man, the cross members on the ground. And I mean, I look at all that stuff and I'm like, this crap better be good, because this is a hell of a lot of work for something that I don't know that, I mean, because from what I knew, I'm like, it's a hell of a lot of work, and I'm not sold that this is the ticket. But,
I mean, we all felt that way for a while, but I mean, when you get your butt kicked week in and week out, I mean, we went through a transition period that those cars, that stuff was faster qualifying, but it didn't race as good. So the older setup stuff raced better. But those went away. Those times went away. I mean, I can remember that we used to go to Bristol thinking, oh yeah, the conventional car or truck or whatever was faster, in the race. But that went away. I mean, the guys got to be so fast that, they're just gone,
God, man. So I guess my question to you is then if you were, let's just say you were, well, for anybody, if somebody hired you right now and they said, Dave, come on out here, we need your help on here. I mean, what would be some of the first things that you would be worried about? What would you be telling that crew to get on and that we need to know?
Well, I just make sure that it was down on the bump stops, doing things right.
How do you make sure that it's that, though? I mean, you say that, but how do you make sure it gets down there and stays down there?
Well, you can get away with using some pretty light springs for that deal because you don't have to worry about heights. And that was Mike Brooks. He reminded me that guy that I was talking about at South Sound Speedway was Austin Tom, and I watched his car and it was way high in front because he had real soft springs. It didn't matter how high it was, but he knew how to keep it down on the bump stops. And everybody, one of the biggest things is everybody thinks that the reason these cars bounce is because they're on the bump stop too hard. And that's exactly 100% wrong. The harder they are on the bump stop, the less they bounce. So the more spring rate you have in the car, the more it wants to bounce, the more it wants to pull it off the bump stop. So it's exactly opposite of what you think. So anytime the car's bouncing, it's got a problem and it's not staying engaged.
So then do you use shock travel then to determine that?
Have you ever for anybody that's worked on cylinder heads and you know what installed height is on a valve spring, this is exactly what you're looking at for a coil spring. You're looking at installed height and what that spring will give you and the force it gives you when it's on the seat pressure and things like that. So that's really kind of the way you look at it.
Okay. So now, and as we've been talking, I'm assuming that we're talking the front end of the car because that's really when you keep it. But what about the ass end of it? I mean, you're not that thing's not sitting down. That thing's not sitting down on bump stops, is it?
The right rear probably pretty much is, yeah. The right rear can.
Why do you laugh at me? Why do you laugh at me?
Well, I mean, a Cup car Martinsville's got 3,500 pound right rear spring in now. I mean, you're going to a short track with a 3,500 pound right rear spring. They don't move.
God.
And that's kind of what this was all about. And I mean, when you got to remember it all goes back to aero. So if the rear don't move, the spoiler stays and the front travels as far as it can go. Look how high the spoiler goes. So this goes back to aerodynamics again. It's all aerodynamics. I mean, once you get your car down and
now, when you say the car down, you mean once you get the front down?
Pretty much.
Yes.
I mean, on a cup car, the way their aerodynamics are, you can go down with those, but the bodies are built that way. So they can go down and still have a lot of downforce in the back. But when you're talking about a late model, you want the back up as high as it can get. You need to look more like an Xfinity or car or a truck, and you watch those things that are dragging the front, but the spoiler's up as high as it can get.
God, it's unbelievable. Well, when I talked to Crothers, I was like, I'm talking like I am to you. I'm like, man, I don't understand. And he says, well, the beauty of the pull-down machine, which I thought was actually amazing, is what your crossweight is at whatever travel it pulls it down, right? At 2 inches, at 3 inches, at whatever. And I thought, man, that was $1 million question that we all wish we knew when we were trying to do this with conventional stuff.
Yeah, but the thing is, it goes back to engineering and knowing what those numbers need to be, because you don't really know. I mean, this is what happened in the earlier days with engineering in the early 90s when they were trying to help. They didn't have enough data to be able to help you out. Now they have so much data. I mean, you know exactly what you got to be at every point on the racetrack because they got simulation. I mean, these guys run simulation programs. You wouldn't believe it. I mean, on their computer, they make the changes, and they go out and put it in a race car, and it backs up just exactly how quick the computer said you were going to go. It's unfathomable how this can happen this way. And you talk about the pull-down machine. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Mittler pull-down machine, but that's a collaboration with Mike Mittler and I. Mike had a similar, well, it wasn't really similar. It was kind of a chain thing, a pull-down thing, and I had an idea what I wanted, and I went to Mike, and I told him I would help him design the thing if he would like basically sell me one at cost. And he did. I told him I guaranteed if he'd keep it under $100,000, he could sell tons of them. So that's exactly how that Mittler pull down machine came about. And now we've got enough information and all that stuff. Those guys can probably put it on the pull down machine where we used to spend days on the pull down machine. You probably don't spend 30 minutes now because they know where they want to go, what they need to be, and they can get it all knocked out in that quick. So the pull down machine's important. But you don't even need it as much as you used to because we know enough about it now that you don't even have to. I mean, you can use rams for pulling down for some of that stuff. And the one thing that people also don't realize is what's so huge back here is the tire data that we get. I mean, the tires are completely different, and the tires change from racetrack to racetrack from week to week. And when they do that, they have all this tire data, and all the engineers know exactly, how much slip angle that tire needs to be, how much camber angle that tire needs to be at. They know exactly what air pressure it needs to be at. I mean, you have all that data. When we're at the short track, and if I go to run a late model, I'm going to have to figure out what those tires like. You got to find out what air pressures they like. You got to figure out what kind of cambers they like. But you got to make sure that your camber's at that when it's down. And that's what you got to have. And that's, once it gets to maximum grip, there's no more guess. The numbers, if your numbers are good and the tire data, you get that camber in it where it's supposed to be, and that's maximum grip for that tire. Now, the biggest thing on the Cup, and when you're pushing these cars as hard as they are, maximum grip on a right front tire usually tears the tire to shreds. So, the tire can't withstand that. So Goodyear has they have an impossible job, because they build these tires and engineers go out there trying to figure out how to get the most grip out of them just before they destruct. So that's why you see people losing right front tires and everything. It has nothing to do with the tire. It's the engineers figure out how to make them grip as much as they can possibly grip. And when they grip that much, tire can't withstand it. So all this data is what these guys get, and you can't race without it. I mean, and that's what I said. That's why I had to, I can't race against the Cup guys, because I don't have that data. It's too much for one guy to do anymore like it used to be. When I first got into the truck series, I had enough information, and knowledge from kind of all aspects of it that one guy could kind of cover a lot of bases, but you can't do that anymore. There is no one guy.
Wow. So if you were a late model guy, what would you, you got me lost now.
It's easy to do, isn't it?
Yeah, it's super easy to do. I mean,
well, the one thing that you can say being a late model guy is everybody's always learned, low, left, and light, right? So that's exactly what you want. You want to get your car low, and you want to keep the weight to the left, and you want it to be as light as possible. So you do all that, and then you make sure that you're studious in how it gets down on the bump stops, and you check your camber and your caster and all that stuff down where it's at, and then you're going to get yourself dialed in, and you'll find out once you get that figured out that you'll be able to go pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, but it's getting that it's getting that information that's the bear. I mean, I'm listening to this and I'm going, man, I'm not sure. Man,
I hate to mess up your show,
No, it's okay. My show's already messed up because Facebook's messing it up. But I'm just. Can
everybody still hear us?
Oh yeah. I've got it going on another. I've got a podcast platform, so that people will still hear it. But the thing that I'm. You got me? I don't even know what to ask you now.
Well, has it got any questions? I can't see any questions anymore. So, I hate to mess with everybody's mind, but it's like it's changed so much. Maybe the younger guys that are kind of more into that stuff on asphalt can follow us a little bit more. But I really mean that you can get confused by knowing too much of the old stuff.
Because none of it's relevant, right?
Exactly. Remember what I told you last week about Bobby Allison telling you to take a shim out and take a shim out and take a shim out?
Yes.
And you asked him how much camber he wanted, and he said, I would just want the right amount. When the car turns, I know I got the right amount. When it quits turning, I know I got too much.
Well, I just put up there. If you have any questions, please ask. I'm just trying to get this Facebook thing to work. It keeps dropping the stream. I don't know why, but so that doesn't help anything. But gosh darn it. So if you had any advice to these guys that are the young guys, okay, forget me, forget the guys that know all the conventional stuff, because I thought I was pretty confident. I thought I was pretty good with the conventional stuff, right? I mean, I would say, hey, you guys, I think I got to, with JJ and everything he taught me, I'm like, I get all that. I understand the roll center, and, you want it 5/8. Well, I know JJ used to tell me, 5/8 to the left, and you don't want it to move any more than the silver dollar, and all that crap. And then I called Garrett and I said, well, you travel the right front, but what do you want in the left front? I don't know. He says, that's a good question. Let me go ask. And he says, you want to travel it down, I don't know what it was, 1.5 inches or 2 inches or whatever, because that's what it's going to be when it rolls over. So you want to make sure that your gain is all that when that's traveling over. So, but those were questions for many years I never even asked. It was always just in the right front.
But that's the problem that you have when you don't have enough knowledge, because here you are talking about roll center in the right front. Well, there's also roll center in the left front, and that's what makes the combination of the roll centers of the two, and the roll center changes with the ride height as it travels, and, you talk about you don't want it to move. Well, that's called migration, and that's the stuff we used to have to worry about, whether you want it to migrate to the right or whether you want it to migrate to the left, where you started, below ground, above ground, to the right of center, all those numbers. But none of that matters, because once you get where it's at, it's not moving anymore. The car does not move. So you don't have to manage that anymore. Years ago, there was a guy that used to write race car engineering books. His name was Steve Smith, and you're probably old enough to remember him.
I used to, a lot of people hated him, but he always helped me. He kind of helped me get my stuff straight, kind of.
Well, he had a lot of basics, and the basics were right. And I mean, he said the biggest thing you can do for bad geometry is limit the movement. I remember that. And that's like, if you don't, so that's what we're doing. Now we've got all this bad geometry. You're limiting movement. You limit the movement, you don't have to worry about the geometry. So, I mean, the biggest thing I would say now.
So when you say geometry, are you saying the length of the the right front A-frame versus the lower, right? Like the lower used to be 15, and then some guys are running 9.5, and some guys are running 7, and, guys were running shit in 10. I mean, you had all these different A-frame lengths, and then you had, I remember Coleman came out with the ball joint that you could, the mono ball that you could stack it and angle your freaking A-frame up. And, man, we were into all that stuff. And on the dirt, of course, we never ran sway bars on the dirt. Yeah. So sway bar to me is like Chinese math. I don't understand it.
Well, I mean, people don't understand. All it takes is take grip off the left. So you're taking grip away from the front when you run a sway bar, but it keeps the car flat, so it's got advantages there too. So it's always, I remember somebody telling me when I was a kid that you do what you think you should, and then do exactly opposite, and that's what's right. Well, that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. That means you're thinking backwards. That's all, and that's exactly what that's all about. But right now, the A-arm length I put in the car, if it was me, I put in the right A-arm length so I get the right headers under the car. I mean, that's how important A-arm length is anymore. It don't matter. It just doesn't matter.
God. Man.
Now it matters when you're sitting in a cup car and the tread width has only got to be a certain width when you go through inspection, and you might want it wider when it gets down to the, when it's down at competition height, they call it, or in our deal, the ride height, the actual dynamic height you're going to run it at, so it's going to be different.
Yeah.
If I've got a maximum camber rule like we do in the cup, the way you get away with that is you make it gain more camber as it goes down, and you have to change the A-arm links to do that. We don't really care about geometry because the camber in the right front's more important.
So then where does this leave us with shocks then? Why do we need $1,500 corner shocks on these damn things?
Well,
I mean, if the thing ain't moving, what do you need shocks for?
Well, you need a good quality shock. And then the biggest problem you run into there is if you're having to have the shock control the spring because you've got too much spring, then you have to have more shock, So.
Well, wait a minute. But if but you want the thing to sit down and not move back up, right? You don't want that front end, like I watched at Cell Sound. I don't know if you were there, but I went there one night and Zaretsky was there. John Zaretsky was there, and he was running. Yeah. And he would go into the corner, and that thing would dive down onto the front. He would pick it up off a 2. The front end would raise like you can't believe. It all go onto the back. And, I mean, the front end was, jeez. I mean, you would laugh if, it was so high. And then he'd go into 3, and boom, that thing would dive down. And, Is that what you want?
No, you want it to stay there. You don't ever want it to move. And that's what, I can tell you right now that any of your listeners right now that are in tune to what they want for rebound in their shocks in the front and how much rebound, I'm going to blow them away when I tell them that we run probably less than 200 pounds of rebound in the left front. And it has so much bleed that you don't even see any rebound until probably about 3 inches of travel because the shock does not hold the car down, But that being said, if you don't have a car that will sit on the bump stops without having the spring pressure pushing it back up, then you've got to have, or with spring pressure pushing it back up, I'm probably saying this backwards, you got to have more rebound for your car. And that's better for your car. But in the end, if you get it down to where you don't have to have so much force on your springs, then you get away with less rebound and you get more grip by taking rebound out of the shock. So it all works together. You can't, it's never been, there's nothing different about this than it's always been. You can't take one guy's setup and apply it to your car. And you certainly can't take 4 guys' setup and apply it to your car. You have to put the setup for what it takes for your car. And I know guys that are very successful with 1,000-pound rebound left front shock. But I guarantee you, when they go up against a guy that has had his car worked out where he can get away with using a 200-pound rebound left front shock, he's going to kick his butt all day long.
All day long?
All day long. But it just depends where your competition's at. You may be the hot dog going to your racetrack, but then go to the next state over and race that other guy. And all of a sudden, you're not the hot dog no more. What happens when you move from Washington State and everybody else in the country has moved from their area and moved to North Carolina? Now you got all these people that were stars, and I say that tongue in cheek, where they were, and they all go race against each other. You're racing against the baddest of the baddest and all over the country. It's pretty tough. Pretty tough. Ask Garrett. Garrett's run all over the country, and he knows what it's like when you get around all them guys that are fast wherever they go, and they go to these big races.
So you're talking like maybe Nasi and Pollard and that one thing I will say, a lot of dudes may not like Bubba Pollard, but that dude is fast everywhere.
Oh yeah, I don't really care. I don't. He's a great race car driver, and he's pretty smart, so he wins a lot of races. It's not a personality contest for me.
Right.
I like drivers that get the job done.
And he's one of them, isn't he?
Yeah, that's why I told you I like Kyle Busch.
Yeah.
I like results.
His brother wasn't too bad either.
No, he's pretty good.
I watched him down. I went to the historic 3/8 at Vegas. I was there. Garrett was there that year. It was the same year Biffle was driving the Granger truck. And we went there. And on a Friday night, I went there. I got there at like 3 in the afternoon. My wife was just pissed. But I wanted to see it all. I didn't want to miss any of it, right? So I get there and I watch Busch go out and practice. And, believe this or not, Dave, he was the only guy on a Howe. And this is back when Howes weren't that good. They were struggling. They weren't, JJ and all them had a deal, but we didn't sell. I mean, you could, I mean, at least pay. I mean, they weren't, everything was Port City or Left Hander or, Rander Car or some of those guys, but, man, if he wouldn't have broke, I mean, I think he blew a motor or blew a radiator, spun in his own stuff and piled it, but he was like 15 or 16 years old. They were saying his principal was up in the grandstands. This kid was putting an ass whooping on everybody.
Oh yeah. I wish that I could see some of these comments and stuff. I wish this thing was working.
Well, it is working now. Mine is.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Well, how do you make mine work?
I don't know. I hope maybe you need to refresh.
Maybe I'll try refreshing and see what happens.
It said, can Dave build my new Outlaw Figure 8 chassis? No rules. How fast can we go?
Yeah, we can go fast. Dave's enjoying the boring life right now. Just kind of, I actually have friends now, which people that know me it'd be hard to believe, but we actually go to dinner on the weekends and hang out and things like that. So I'm becoming a regular guy. So I'm kind of enjoying that, but I still do miss, doing some of that stuff at the racetrack. But I've been very disappointed, quite frankly, going to the local short track races around here.
Why?
Because there's just no cars. And it looks like a go-kart track. Everybody sits there behind their trailer and, cooks out. It's like they're not racers like we all were racers.
Yeah, I know.
Not enough cars.
The day of the real racer are gone. Hey, have you seen Jeremy Doss run?
No.
Okay. Have you seen Peltier run?
Yes.
That boy is ridiculous.
I know he's fast, but I don't really watch a lot of races on TV and stuff, surprisingly enough.
What?
Bottom line is it goes back to what I said earlier. I've been a racer all my life. I hadn't been a real fan, so I just wanted to race.
So now, so if somebody called you up and said, "Hey, Fuge, if I pay your way out here for the summer, would you come out and do it?"
Yeah, doubtful.
Why?
Doubtful. Why? I don't know. I'm just kind of over that. I wouldn't mind it. I may come out there, but I'm not going to hang out for no summer,
Right.
Just depends. I already talked to Chuck. Him and I are talking. We might do something. I'm going to come out.
Who, Flora?
Yeah.
Dude, no.
I got to say, when we went to South Sound Speedway, Chuck's daughter, Becky, her boyfriend is Mike Brooks, and he just kind of let us start messing around with his car. And I think we probably screwed it up more than anything, but us old guys were having a blast, just zinging the coilover adjusters and all that stuff. So I think we probably had more fun than he did.
Wow. Man, I am so sorry. This Facebook thing it's dumped me like 3 times. I just don't get it. I guess it's free, so I can't really bitch.
I guess. So we got any questions from anybody?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, and the ones that were on here, that's the problem with that's the problem that I've had all along, man, is you tell everybody to come and nobody asks any questions. That's the struggle I have had from the gate. I don't understand it. I truly don't.
I'll see now. If Garrett was on here and was back in the old days, you wouldn't shut him up because he'd be like trying to get every piece of information he could get.
Yeah, and do you think I can get Garrett to tune into my show? I told him you were going to be on today. Yeah, I just don't. I don't get what's going on here.
Well, there's a lot of people that listen. I don't know how many people are actually.
Well, I'm going to, we won't know until, and that's why I was just trying to ask the questions because nobody was really coming in. But every time it goes about 8-10 minutes and then the thing wants to dump me. So I don't know what's going on. I'll have to.
I do want to say before this thing shut down and I couldn't see anybody, that an old friend of mine got on here, Mike Easley. And I think a lot of people know him from the Northwest. And I haven't met him personally, but just over Facebook, and he's a damn good dude. Yeah, he was. we have a lot of memories going back to the days. He used to work at Herschel's, and then him and I were working for George Jefferson when we were doing some of the races for him. And I want to say Jeff Jefferson, but everybody knows that that's a different Jeff Jefferson now. But we used to go racing, and I can remember him and his wife, who's gone now, unfortunately, us being on the road together and driving all through the night. And Jeff was always on a very tight budget, so we had a great time.
Absolutely, man. So let's see here. 200-pound corner weight, spring weight or load weight on the left front shock. If you got, it says 200-pound corner weight, spring weight or load weight on the left front shock. Is that enough info?
Not really sure what the question is.
Yeah. Kevin, we need to know a little bit more about that question right there.
I'd have at least. The bottom line.
Now let's face it. I know you're not an expert on this, but this is dirt.
Well, dirt's going to be a tough question for me because I know zero about dirt. About dirt. Well, I'm just talking. Those cars.
Well, come on out, Fuge. I'm going to educate you. No, I'm kidding.
They roll over and do all that stuff. Everything that we're trying to make sure we don't do. You're not. You got to remember that everything you do on the left front, the equal and opposite has got to be in the right rear. So
he said when he was talking about the left front shock.
When I was talking about the left front shock and 200 pounds of rebound.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can only do that when you have a low spring rate force.
So what's low spring rate? So like across the front of a late model, I know this is kind of broad, but what would you start with?
Low, as soft as I get to hold it up. I assume you're going to have to go through height sticks to get it through the height sticks, right?
I don't know. Do they do that?
Yeah, I'm sure they do. You can't run around there with the things dragging the ground, right? They got to have a roof height and a quarter panel height or a spoiler height. And
what's the normal weight like for a late model? Is a 125-pound spring? Could you get away with that in the front?
Oh, you can go softer than that.
What?
Oh yeah. It just depends how much stack height you've got, how much height you've got in your shocks, how much travel you've got. You just build the spring taller. If the spring coil binds because it's too soft, you got to have a taller spring. We use 20-inch rear springs in a left rear of a Cup car, and they're only like probably installed height is probably only about 10 or 12. So wow. you gotta pry a spring in there to get it in there. It's so soft. We'll run like an 80-pound spring in the left rear of a Cup car.
Jeez. Dude, you're blowing. I'm like, what? And here we were on the dirt. I can remember when I was doing it.
We've already established you're too old.
Yeah, because it was like, man, I'd run a 350 in the right rear and a 225 in the right rear, and everybody, it was like, and 140 pounds of bite.
Hey, I left Washington State and moved to North Carolina, and I always had to have a softer right rear spring than a left rear spring because we ran flat tracks, and that's what you did back then, hillbilly springs. So here I am at Charlotte Motor Speedway trying to run like a 500-pound spring or less, and we had like 5.5 inches of travel. I had our wheel tubs up into the rear window, and it took Banjo Matthews to teach me how to do it with stiffer springs. So.
Crazy.
One of the great things I got to work with a lot of great people, and you talk about guys like Banjo Matthews and all that. I was helped to get around Bristol by Junior Johnson's oldest crew chief. It was pretty amazing, pretty amazing. It was great times for me to come back there.
Are you going to come back? Do you think you're going to come back this summer?
Yeah, I might. It's hard to say right now. We don't know where we're doing anything. I was supposed to be leaving this weekend to go on my Mazatlan vacation, but that got canceled. So I don't know if I can go anywhere yet and when.
Wow, dude. Wow.
So and I'm like everybody else. I have a business that, if everything works out,
and what's your business? Are you still setting up cars and stuff?
No, I'm not completely out of racing. We bought a window cleaning franchise
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Small commercial residential window cleaning franchise.
Nifty. And you enjoying that?
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Gives me something to do.
Yeah.
You know? Except for right now, I'm bored stiff. On top of all, you talk about being bored now. We've all been bored here for a month, sitting at home, not doing nothing, and you can't think of anything. Well, we had this big storm in the south. Luckily, we weren't nearly as bad as Louisiana, but we lost our power this morning. So I get up, and we're already bored because you got nothing to do. And then I didn't have power till noon. So we were sitting around the house. We run our phones empty because there was nothing else to do. You couldn't get on a computer. You couldn't watch TV. You couldn't do anything. So we got on our phones, and then the batteries went dead there. So we were really crazy today.
Wow. Well, hey, man, I appreciate you taking the time. I'm sorry, my Facebook thing, it's been in and out, and but even at that, there wasn't a whole lot of. I can't believe it. I'm stunned. But hey, we tried, didn't we?
We tried. Yeah, we tried.
Yep, it's the new generation. They just don't. Everybody thinks they know everything. That's my deal. But hey, so I got to ask you before you split. The Kyle Larson crucifixion. What do you think of that?
I hate politically correctness because I think it's completely taken out of context.
Yeah.
And I can't, without getting myself in trouble, I can't say much either because it's just completely out of context. It's like crazy. The guy's having a conversation with his homie or whatever, and
I get it. I mean, should that condone? I mean, I'm not condoning the fact that he used the N-word. I mean, hey, I'm a brother here, but we use it all the time amongst ourselves. So, I mean, and the way I see it is, when it's derogatory and when it's not.
Exactly.
Exactly. So I'm not.
That's the problem with this politically correct movement that we've got. There's no common sense.
Yeah, it is. It's should a guy lose his career over that? Absolutely not. And I'm hearing GM pulled out. I'm hearing Citibank pulled out. And all over an iRacing deal that's
stupid.
It is stupid. And the same with Bubba Wallace, right?
Same thing.
But here's the deal. Could we say, and I know you're going to say, I don't, but could we say that because times are tough, it's just easy to find a way out, and so they're going to use whatever they can do to pull out because times are tough?
I just don't really know. I don't think that's it. I mean, personally, but
I hope not.
I think that they're scared to death with the politically correct movement, just like everybody else is. If they don't react, then it comes down on them. So I mean, it's we all know it's completely out of hand. I mean, I don't know how something can take over like this when the majority of the people you talk to think it's completely out of hand. How can the minority rule that much? So
absolutely, I agree.
This could be another whole radio show.
Yes, it could. How about Michael Brooks? Do you know him?
Oh yeah, that's what I said. That's Becky Flora's boyfriend.
Yeah, he says hopefully we'll see you this summer, Dave.
We'll be there probably.
Man, I hope so. Will you? When you show up out here, can we meet?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. It would be a freaking honor, man. I'm telling you. I know you're gonna say, but seriously, for me, it would be a big deal, a really big deal.
We've had fun.
We sure have, man. I don't know, man. I'm half tempted to ask you back next week just because this thing was such a joke. But how about
anytime? I don't care. I'm not. It's not like I'm doing a lot. Not to downplay your show or nothing, but
no. Oh yeah, thanks a lot, Fuge.
I don't want to come across like I'm some high and mighty because I never did
come
that.
on. Why do you always say that? Why
like
do you?
I said, I race for me. That's what I race for.
Why do you always say that, man?
Probably tell my ex-wife and my ex-girlfriend that I race for me. They would be able to understand that.
No, man. I don't know why you always say that. I don't think you realize you're a I mean, man, dude, you're a big deal, man. It's okay to be a big deal. I'm telling you. Seriously, man. I'm telling you, you're a big deal to me.
I've been able to get paid and go racing and do everything I want, and it started out with connection with a lot of people that got me a lot of places, and if it wasn't for those people, I'd never be here.
I agree more, man. I without JJ and Dave Goulet and Gary Peterson and a whole bunch of other people, I wouldn't have James Emery and Jeff Land and Rick Terry and man, I could go down the list. My wife, my father-in-law. I mean, you're right, man. You know, the list is long when you get to thinking about all the people who have, and I don't care how minuscule it is.
I mean,
you don't realize it.
When you get to our age and you start thinking back of all the people, it's hard to realize it. And then, and I thank people today, and they're all like amazed that I feel that way about them, but they don't realize how important they were to me.
Absolutely, Dave.
Like I said, when you're talking, it goes all the way back to, like I said, Ron Eaton was the biggest influence probably in my entire career. I mean, if there's one person that's probably has the most input on my career, it was Ron. But there's been tons. I mean, I couldn't have done anything without a lot of the people I had, and I mean, I started my race car building deal and the parts deal, with the help from Benny Phillips at McCoy Racing Products. And it all happened because they were kind of starting to pull back because Benny was getting a little bit old and he didn't want to go to the racetrack anymore. And he had Roy Goodland working for him. And I managed to snag Roy out from under him. And he's probably one of the most gifted people I've ever worked with, and probably underappreciated. But him and my brother and some of the other people that I had, if it wasn't for those guys, I'd have never made it. I'd have never been able to do what I did. I mean, Roy held down the fort, every weekend.
So imagine when you say, man, I'm nothing, I'm nobody, imagine what you were to guys that were trying to build cars and guys that were, dude, I mean, I wasn't even a pavement guy. I always wanted to be. I never drove I only got to go on the dirt, but imagine having JJ there and having him talk about you and Goulet talking about you and you saying, I ain't that big a deal. I don't know. I mean, you were an inspiration for a lot of guys. I mean, and you got to remember, I mean, you might not think so, but there's people who like you think Ron Eaton was huge to you. You were huge to them.
Well, I mean, in my deal, I just, I love racing and I love people to love the sport. So I've just always tried to help people. And I mean, the hardest thing is when you're trying to race against people, hardest thing for me was actually when I had my race car building business and I had 6 cars in a dash at Yakima, all 6 were mine. And you're trying to root for all of them and they can't all win. That was really the hardest thing. How do you tell a guy? I mean, realistically, how you tell a guy that the reason he's not winning the races like Garrett is because Garrett's a better driver. I mean, and it's reality. I mean, I gave a lot of people a lot of crap, but I always wanted to help people as much as I possibly could. I enjoy the sport. I've always enjoyed the sport. It's been good to me. It's been my life. And I just love to have people have fun doing it.
Yeah, man. I'm telling you, it's an honor for me to for 2 weeks to have you on the show and just to BS about racing and setups and man, that's what I live for. I mean, for me, it's I don't know. Some people may not get it, but I'm sure you do. I talk to Garrett and we talk about the old times and all the old stuff and. I mean, it's better than sex, kind of.
I don't know about that. But, my memory's bad there, too, so I can't say. But, I mean, the other thing is when you ask me about what my satisfactions are, what drove me, I had a big impact on the NASCAR rulebook. And that's something that was huge because I was pretty innovative at the time. And they call it cheating or whatever, but the bottom line back in those days, you wasn't cheating. We had this conversation last week. You were kind of doing what they didn't say. Nowadays, it's so specific, they are cheating, but that was part of it. And I have such an impact on the rule book, all the ride heights, all that stuff, the roof heights, the quarter panel heights, all those things I had a huge impact on. We were doing so much with bodies and stuff aerodynamically then. And I mean, we just, we were we were responsible for a huge amount of the templates, so guys can probably hate me for that. But, there was just, you're doing something when the rule book reflects your presence, I guess.
Absolutely, man.
That will always be there. And I'm serious. If you ever have an author out there that's worth a darn that wants to write a book, I think it would be kind of interesting. But I might be biased, but there's a lot of stuff that I've seen, and I think I was in the best time in racing for sure.
Well, here's what I want, Fuge. So when you come out here this summer, I want you to come here for a weekend, and we're gonna record a show. I'm gonna maybe I'll even get Garrett to come and sit in here. Can you imagine that? And we'll just sit here, and I'm just gonna let you guys go, man. I think I want to have like a round table type thing. That's one of my biggest dreams was to have like you and Garrett, and maybe I'll even try to get Harry Jefferson over here, and or I'll go somewhere and we'll meet somewhere and I'll set up my stuff and we can just, man, for a couple hours just have wouldn't that be cool?
Probably ought to get Jeff Jefferson. He's probably the smart guy now. He's out there, running and winning races. Yeah,
absolutely, man. But so let me see what happens here, and I'm gonna find out. I'm disappointed. It says Terry wants steel bodies with window regulators. Well, so does Fuge. I'm not the only one.
Days. Those were good days, but I'd have cheated and had the regulators aluminum.
Yeah, but man, let me find out. I'm gonna get on these guys because, man, we need more questions if we're gonna waste your time.
You're not wasting my time. I'm just sitting here, drinking my wine, having a laugh.
That's awesome, man. Well, dude, I sure appreciate you, Dave Fuge. You're in my eyes, you're just a complete class act, man. I don't know what else to say other than I love you and I appreciate you, and man, I can't wait to meet you in person.
All right, man.
All right, brother. Sounds good, Dave.
You have to go to an asphalt track, though. I can't go to dirt.
That's all right. We'll take you to both.
All right, man. Thanks.
All right, man. Thanks. Bye-bye.
See you, bye.
Dave Fuge, everybody. Man, I'm here to tell you, I'm sorry about the dropouts. It wasn't me. This is Facebook. I don't get this. But if you go to Spreaker, Spreaker, I'll post it on the thing. It'll be live all the way. The beginning might have been a little bit off, but we were just BSing about how he did over the week. But you guys, I'm gonna ask him back, but you guys need to come with some questions. Where is Agni Howell? Where is BJ Tidrick? Where is where are these? Where are the Huffines at? Where are all these guys that are running? Where's Schroeder at? These guys that want to ask questions and they want to know what's going on. I don't see him on here. And so that's my deal. I don't want to get this guy on here ready to spill all the secrets and give you guys pointers if nobody's interested. So I'm going to make a video and I'm going to do that this week, but I'll ask him back for next week. But man, you guys got to come with some questions. Dave Fuge, man, come on. This guy is God, as far as setups go, and I don't care. He could have turned it on and checked it. Okay, Agni, I'll give you a little credit, but where's Schultz and where is? I know it kind of flopped in and out, but I'll have to find out what's going on. I don't know if it's me or I don't think it is because everything's working now. So anyway, I just want to say, hope everybody had a great Easter. We'll be back on Wednesday night. I'm going to have Heather Boyce and Jeremy Means from Cottage Grove Speedway and Banks. I don't think the loader's retired. If those of you are wondering, I don't think he's retired yet. We'll have to see what goes on. I don't know what's happening, but just remember that Wednesday nights are the first and third Wednesday of the month, just until things pick up. And it might be that we end up doing that with Late Model Monday. I'll be more than happy to come back and do some stuff, about with Dave Fuge. I just want more guys to come, and I don't want to waste this guy's time. This guy's a pro. He knows his stuff. And so if you guys want to know, or you want to get some insight, or you want to get some understanding, I mean, it never hurts. Even if you already know what he says, there might be one little nugget that you can take away from this. So anyway, I just went dead again. I love you. Take care. Peace. Good night. Well, that's a wrap. We hope you enjoyed the show. If so, please like and share on Facebook. And don't forget to stop by TerryBridgesRacing.com on the World Wide Web and subscribe so you never miss a show. The audio version of tonight's show is now available on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, CastBox, or Podcast Addict. For the loader, Jeff Eden, I'm your horsepower performance host, Terry Bridges. And we'll see you next week for another episode of Late Model Monday, a Circle Left production.
Hey everybody, Stephen Blankenship. You are listening to Late Model Monday, where you get the best and the fastest news of late models everywhere around the Northwest. And you'll be listening to Terry Bridges and the loader, Jeff Eden.
Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. Some of it was very kind of